My name's Tyler Hobbs. I'm a generative artist from Austin, Texas. The first time that I created art with code, it was my mid-20s. I had been working as an artist, really trying a lot of drawing and painting and trying to figure out a way to integrate programming and mathematics into my art, but honestly it didn't come immediately to me that I should do it through code. But the first time that I did give it a try, it was just fantastic. I was obsessed with it pretty much right away, and all the cool things you could do working through code. It was really fascinating once I got into it, seeing all of the ideas and lessons I had learned from painting, how they might be kind of implemented through code, and the way that doing it through code makes you totally rethink what you know about art. And once you have to put it into that very concrete language of a programming language, it really changes how you work. I started more and more frequently over the next few years starting to make programs that were interesting for a larger number of iterations, a larger number of outputs. And so I was mostly selling prints through my website at that time, and so I started, selling 3 or 4 from one algorithm, and then 5 or 6, and then 10, and then 20 or 30 sometimes. So that was about the upper limit of kind of the depth of the algorithms that I made pre-Fidenza were ones that were interesting for maybe 20 or 30 outputs. All the way back in, I think, 2014 or 2015, I wrote an essay about some of the bones of what became this idea of long-form generative art, and wondering how far can you push one generative algorithm. I never really had the opportunity to test myself until art blocks came along, because there was no way I was going to sell 1,000 prints. And so this was the first time that I actually had an opportunity to make a work where there was a real chance of somebody actually collecting all 1,000. And so Fidenza came along at a time where I think I was really fortunate that I had a lot of pieces of the algorithm already in place, but I hadn't fully tapped it out, so to speak. Obviously, I had been working with flow fields for a few years, since I think like 2016 or so. So I had mastered a lot of different ways of using them, and maybe the year leading up to Fidenza, I had kind of played with doing these like rectangular curvy blocks over the flow field. I even did a mural in late 2020 that has a lot of those elements of Fidenza in it. A lot of the pieces were already there, and fortunately this was just an algorithm that I knew was very extensible. So I was just really fortunate that I had like a rich body of work that was already very fertile and kind of ready to go at the time that art blocks showed up, and I started working on Fidenza. The Fidenza algorithm, we start out with the blank canvas, and the very first thing that happens are some choices about what kind of Fidenza is going to be generated. And the most important things are things like the scale. Are we going to be generating small shapes, medium shapes, big shapes? We pick out a color palette. What kind of colors are we going to be working with? Some other decisions like turbulence. Is it going to be relatively smooth or very curvy? Fidenza starts out, it makes all these choices about what kind of work is going to be generated, and then it gets to work. And the first thing that happens is the preparation of the flow field. So this is really, you can kind of imagine it as a grid of directional vectors that kind of create this flow across the canvas, and it happens in such a way that if you draw a line that follows the flow, none of the lines end up crossing, which is important to the aesthetic quality. Some Fidenzas will have more turbulence, more curvature, others will have less. And then the algorithm starts to create the blocks, and it's going to try placing mostly as many blocks as it can. There's a little bit of adjustment. Some are more dense, some are more sparse, but generally speaking, it's going to try a lot of times to squeeze in more blocks in order to really fill up the canvas, starting with the largest ones it can, because those are kind of the centerpieces for the composition, and then it tends to fill in the gaps with smaller pieces. And every time it lays down or tries to lay down a new block, it's always looking for collisions and trying to leave a little bit of space in between the blocks so that they don't collide. Unless, of course, we're looking at a Fidenza where the rules are different, where it's anything goes and any collisions can happen. So there are exceptions to all these things. And then once the block is placed, it just needs to be colored, and so the block gets split up into different segments. There are some rules about how big those segments might be, trying to create like a little bit of rhythm in terms of those patterns at the end of the blocks. and everything gets populated with colors from the color palette that was chosen at the beginning, and that's it. That's how a Fidenza gets made.
I remember looking at it and thinking they were so beautiful. So I was looking at all 999 pieces and just like, spending hours and hours just looking through it.
What's really nice about the work is just the way that the colors are very harmonious, and also the way that scale is used in the project. The microdenzas are absolutely tiny, and some of the jumbo ones are just way big, so there's this almost like fractal quality to it.
I also just really liked the way that he expressed like a brush-like quality without like trying to manufacture paintbrush strokes, right? It was just like, it was obviously like a bunch of vector lines that were just like sandwiched together sometimes. There was kind of a nod to like the painter's hand in that wasn't trying to like replicate the painter's hand. It was just trying to like sort of acknowledge, like a piece of this artist.
A lot of my appreciation for generative art is like the tension space, that design space between things being the same and things being different, and like how an artist can wield procedure and randomness to really play in that gray area. And when I saw Fidenza, I was just like, this is insanity.
I wanted to create a lot of variety, but I only wanted to use each feature as much as it was interesting. I wanted to keep some of these things rare, not because they were the best thing, but because I thought that made sense for how many times would it be interesting to see these. And then I deliberately took the approach of, I'm going to make what I consider to be the strongest and richest core of the algorithm to be the most common. And so for me, that was like, the Lux palette, kind of the jumbo scale, all of the features that you're used to seeing. Those are the most common because I thought that those were the strongest on average, and also were most interesting to see over and over again because they had the most built-in variety.
How I would classify a really great generative art product is that you could pick any two random samples from a system that are, from the outputs, and you can tell they're from the same system, but they do not look alike, that they are unique, but you can tell that they're from the same place.
And the fact that Tyler created this algorithm that both is so expressive and across a large set be so diverse, and yet each piece be so incredible, that I think is an achievement.
The reception to Fidenza and everything that happened in the months that followed was absolutely insane. I mean, it feels amazing to have your work recognized and for it to really mean something to people. It's something I think that any artist would love to have happen, and I think it's great that it happened with Fidenza. I feel really proud of that work in many ways. It's a culmination of years and years of work. Yeah, a lot of my very best ideas went into that, so I'm super proud for Fidenza to be the work that is seen that way.